Hello, Sunshine. Alexi, Lalas here. Stu, Holden, and Mauricio are going to join us here shortly. We come to you live, as you can see, from Houston for our instant reaction of Mexico's win over the United States in the Gold Cup final. Is there a new identity when it comes to this U.S. team? I don't know. We're going to break it down. Next! Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome to the State of the Union, presented by Yerba Madre, the boost you need when you want to win. Drink Yerba Madre, come to life. I'm Alexi Lalas, and this is where we look at the beautiful game on and off the field through the lens of red, white, and blue-colored glasses. I promised you, and here you are. Stu Holden, fresh off of calling the U.S.-Mexico game.
Let's go.
Who worked alongside me. All right, sucks to lose. Sucks even more to lose to Mexico. But it happened. Real quick, instant reaction, Stu, because you were up there calling the game. Sometimes you get a different vantage point, literally, watching the game.
Yeah, you get wrapped up in the emotion, I think, of the game in moments. We all know what this rivalry means. I think on the balance of the game, that was the fair result. Mexico were the better team. The U.S. punched them early in the face. We all knew how important set pieces were going to be as part of a final in this matchup against Mexico. But I felt that the U.S. maybe scored too early in the game, and that maybe they felt a little bit too comfortable, started to slowly retreat as the half went on. Moment of lapse in the midfield, Raul Jimenez scores, and then in the second half, I just didn't feel the U.S. had enough to either get pressure, cause Mexico problems the other way. But trying to have context about what this was going to be, or what we felt this was going to be coming in, Mexico had their full A team. The U.S. clearly did not. I think definitively you could say they were missing 5 starters for a game like this. But still, part of me felt I was inspired by some of the moments throughout this tournament. I thought that this team could still find a way to win a game in a final and a one-off, because Mexico hadn't been great. But Mexico tonight showed their experience, their class, and I think what they're building, which is something special under Aguirre.
I would say Mexico showed their maturity. Their maturity showed through their experience. I mean, you talk about big moments. Managing big moments. They conceded in the fourth minute, of this game, and they weren't fazed by it. They weren't fazed by it. The expression and the reaction from their players, from their manager, was like, we've been in this situation before. We know how to get back into a game. And you talk about big moments and players being ready for those big moments. Well, Raul Jimenez's goal is just an instinctual finish. It's a player showing, I've been in this position before. I don't need to take a touch. I don't even look at the goal. I know, put my laces through this, find the back of the net. Set piece goal as well. So I'm trying to view this as, I'm trying to view the process of this tournament.
He's trying to find positives is what he's trying to say.
I'm trying to look at the whole thing, right, instead of just a moment, because for a lot of these players, this was a massive game for them. This is probably the biggest game, maybe the biggest crowd that they played in front of, and it was a crowd that was pro-Mexican, right? So these experiences, these losses, these moments in the game, and then the big picture moment of losing this game and having to watch the team hoist a trophy in front of you, and in our country, those are valuable lessons for this group of players as we look towards next summer and hosting the World Cup.
You're emotional about it, and you should be. And we're not going to apologize for that. That's good, because it's one thing to play for your country. It's one thing to play for your country against other countries. It's a whole other thing to play for your country against Mexico. It is the rivalry, as I said before. I think it's the best rivalry in international soccer. There are no moral victories. I don't care how inexperienced you are. I don't care how young you are. Having said that, I think it is important, and I think it will become more important and apparent as we go on how valuable this was to Mauricio Pochettino. And yes, there's not the discovery, but Diego Luna, obviously Malik Tillman, and these types of players, Chris Richards, that used it to either reestablish or establish themselves going forward. But I think Mauricio Pochettino actually will be a big winner coming out of this, because I think he has established a new identity for this team going forward. So now the players that weren't here, when they come back, they have to live up to that. They have to adjust, not the other way around. I don't like losing, and they lost to a better Mexico team. U.S. couldn't get possession in huge swaths of the game, and that was a real problem. Up top, Ajiman, all right, He's there. He got a run of games, started every single game, got some goals.
Didn't seize the moment, though.
Didn't seize the moment. And speaking of seizing the moment, with all the love and the praise that we have given to Diego Luna, and he deserves it because I think he is a star in the making. But in order to be a star, you have to bring it when everybody is expecting you to bring it. And he didn't bring it today. He disappeared today. Now, the team wasn't great today, but with his ability, and if he is the player that we're making him out to be, and I do think he can be, he better learn from this because you can't, the bed in the biggest moment because that's not what stars do. So if you want to be a star and you want all that attention, then you got to bring it on the big days, and he didn't bring it today.
And I think you're absolutely right when you think about what these players that were not here are going to be walking into in September. And I don't know if it's as much about creating a new identity as much as it is for Mauricio Pochettino raising the levels of expectations of what he wants as far as when players come into this team, a base level of expectations of standards, passion, competitiveness, fight, and then bring the quality, which I think was missing tonight. And when you talk about Luna, maybe Berhalter for stretches, Ajima, specifically the players in the attacking part of the field, I think that's what I think about when the U.S. weren't able to get out of pressure. You didn't have enough guys that were willing to say, give me the ball. I'm going to take it between two defenders. Tillman had a bit of that.
Yep.
Didn't have his best game overall, but man, that guy was fighting, tackling, drawing defenders in, dribbling through defenders, trying to make stuff happen.
Yep.
And he still had, on a night where it's going to be tough to find guys who had really good nights, he had a good night. Chris Richards, once again, I thought was spectacular throughout the 90 minutes, cleaning up stuff defensively, making plays. Tim Ream is maybe a step late on the goal from Jimenez. But generally, I think the big picture takeaway is that there is an expectation that was built up over a month and a familiarity between these players now and this coaching staff of what this coaching staff wants to see from the players of when you come into the camp on day one.
I would say, go ahead.
Do you guys feel better about this national team now 340 days away from this incredible opportunity next summer? After what you've seen over the last 3 weeks, do you feel better, worse, or the same?
It's a hard question, Lex, because coming into the tournament, we're coming off of 4 losses. We're coming off of losing in Nations League. We're coming off of losing in Copa America. So I was incredibly frustrated because that's not the expectation I had. I found moments of joy. I found moments to be proud of this team because they found ways to win games. I continuously emphasize winning is the cure, right? And what I meant by that is that through winning games, it allows you to make corrections. It allows you to be assessed and challenged to do more. Going to the point about, to answer your question, I'm encouraged, but I can't say that I feel, it's hard to say because I want to say, I wanted to judge the whole group.
Contextualize it, you're like, well, it's teams we should have beaten, right?
And
I mean,
more
Costa
so, but
Rica,
more so,
Guatemala, Haiti.
What I would say that it excites me, and I'm going to bring it back around. It excites me for September because what Pochettino did with this camp is it said, no one's safe, right? That you can't be content. You can't just rest on your laurels. He's going to continuously challenge you. And guys that played in this tournament that showed well, I have full expectation that when September rolls around.
You say nobody's safe. Would you feel comfortable rolling that lineup out?
No.
Game of the World
and
Cup
that's not what I mean by nobody's safe is, I mean, competition. So when the next camp comes around, he announces his roster for September, whatever. I fully expect that what happens in training will go a long way in dictating who plays in those games.
So, kicking that over, a similar question to you, Lex, is which guys do you feel that had that type of moment that maybe have created an uneasiness with the guys that were watching? Because that's what this has all been about, right?
Better question is, what's your best 11?
Yeah, well, it's trying to develop the next crop of guys that can push the guys that have been in those starting positions for 4 years and haven't really felt that uneasiness. That to me was hopefully the big takeaway here.
Yeah, I mean,
I think Tillman has done it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Tillman was almost a known quantity. We knew what he was, but he definitely has stepped it up. And there is still, I think there's still a ceiling for him. So I don't think he's tapped out. I think Sebastian Berhalter, obviously, and Diego Luna are the big winners in terms of players that have kind of come from, not nowhere because we've seen them before, but when you're looking at them in the context of this national team, I think it's hard. I can't fathom a situation where either of those two, or both of those two, wouldn't be brought in the next camp. And whoever starts in the next friendlies, it's going to be interesting. As Landon Donovan was saying, but I think it's going to be more interesting who's actually brought
Yeah.
into camp and who
I
isn't.
agree with that. Yeah.
I would say so. My biggest winner, actually, to your point, is Malik Tillman, and I say that because I look at him as actually being our number 10. I think he can be the number 10, and yeah, we were familiar with him, but I feel like I learned a lot more. Obviously, it's more games, it's consistent games, it's a tournament, but I learned a lot more about this kid. I mean, the way some of the stats that we were reading off, you read off during game, we read off during pregame, where leads the team in interceptions and tackles and recoveries. He's a number 10.
Yeah.
He's an attacking midfielder. He's not your number 6. He's not your number 8 who's going box to box, who's tasked with that role and that responsibility. So I learned a lot about him, and if I was looking towards the future, until someone else steps up and shows me that they deserve that spot, I have him as a number 10, the starting number 10.
Yeah. I also get excited about the prospect of Malik Tillman playing with Pulisic on his left and Tim Way on his right, and whoever it ends up being up front, because he is a player that I think showed he can rise to the occasion in the moment of being more of a leader, taking more responsibility. But he's also the type of player, you guys talked about it so much too. He's so smooth in possession. He combines, he links well, his temperament, everything. Being able to ride different moments throughout games and still, taking the kicks and saying, no, I'm in here, and you're going to have to fight. That's what I like. He's undoubtedly a big winner.
All right, it is time now for the boost of the game presented by Yerba Madre. Yerba Madre, the boost you need when you want to win. Drink Yerba Madre, come to life. Set pieces, set pieces, set pieces. Actually, to be fair, set pieces on both sides. It's not often that we talk about Mexico in the context of set pieces, and yet they have lived off of set pieces throughout this tournament. I don't know if it's by design or it's just something that has happened. Landon and I at times have gone back and forth about as to what the value is. Well, the value is...
He says it's only half a goal. It's only worth half a goal.
But it's the winning goal. And the value is, from a U.S. perspective, if you don't have a lot of the ball and you're not going to have a lot of possession, if you can make some hay, as they did here today, maybe to your point, too early. There wasn't a whole lot left. When it comes, not just in set pieces, but I think the U.S. let Mexico off the hook in that first half. There was a period in the first 10, 15 minutes of the game where there was lots of space. Mexico wasn't pressing in the way that
they weren't connected.
Cohesive. They weren't and that ruthlessness was missing to say, hey, this is a vulnerable Mexico, because they're gonna get it right at some point. But right now, while they don't, the U.S. needed a punishment, and they didn't have the ability. I go back to the ruthlessness to seize upon that and almost put the game out, because there were wide open spaces for them to capitalize on.
And it was kind of a theme, right? We had challenged them on other occasions throughout the course of this tournament. In Guatemala, they went and got that second goal, but then that's when the drop-off happened. But you're right. Earlier in that game, Mexico was all over the shop from a midfield standpoint, and the U.S. was doing a decent job of changing the point of attack, playing through the lines. But that final product was lacking. That final ball was lacking. I think Luna had that chance where it's off a re-scrambled ball or something like toward the top of the 18.
Bar,
if he's able to put that in the back of the net, now I'm asking a lot maybe out of him in that moment, but those are the small margins, right? Those are the small margins, and you only learn how to handle those situations by being in more games of consequence and more games that have this kind of pressure.
I think when I think about ruthlessness, that's what's missing from Patrick Ajamong's game.
Mm-hmm.
We talked throughout the tournament in different moments about stuff he does so well for this team. Holds up play, uses his frame well, a lot of selfless running off the ball. But to be a striker at the national team level and to be a starter for the national team at the very top level in the biggest games, you've got to be more of a presence in front of goal. You have to be dangerous. You have to be finishing off chances. And he had a couple of looks tonight, and for whatever reason it was a touch inside. He's off balance. He misses the ball. And that's the difference between maybe Ajamong and then Pepe and Balogun, and me having the confidence to say I'm good with him starting. I don't feel that way. And
Would
look,
you? Is he in camp
handful.
for you? Is he in camp for you in September?
I think he's earned enough to be in camp. I can't see him as a starter for the U.S. men's national team.
He's also
right now.
he's 24 years old.
Yeah.
So this isn't.
He's wrong.
This isn't a but he's still.
But you're right.
He's still 24.
He's not young.
Right?
He's not young.
He's not young. And look, I'm all for late bloomers and people figuring it out, and he certainly could be that. But too often you're left saying, "Come on, man.
I want him to.
Come on."
Yeah, it's like I think the phrase I used was I want him to reward himself more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you do all the hard work, man. You fight and scrap. Like, we both have played center back, and it's so annoying when you have these strikers who want to run into channels, who want to try to post you up, who have a lot of different qualities to their game that test you out in different ways. But the thing that you're the most pleased about is that they don't take their chances.
Yeah.
And that
Would you have felt better with Josh Sargent up in this camp? I mean, Sargent seems completely on the out looking in at Pochettino. Maybe has the most that he has to do over the course of the next year. But, the guy led these rumors of him going to Leeds. So he can play his way back into showing that he can. But, again, I still, with Sargent, I know you're the same. I'm always left thinking in a U.S. shirt especially.
But you keep going down the line with these guys.
Yeah,
I mean, we
you're
saw,
right.
we saw
Same
Raul
conversation.
Jimenez. It's so nice to have somebody up top. And Mexico has somebody up top that is going to take all of that pressure. He also, he doesn't get enough credit for the skill that he has, the runs that he makes, and the people that he draws that opens up other space out there, and then ultimately scoring goals, which is what you have to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're completely invisible in a game and then you score. He's rarely invisible in a game. If Ajiman was invisible during the game and then scored, fine, I'll take it because the goals are the most important thing. But we're not getting that. I don't know if he is ever going to be that. But again, it goes back to the fact that we are less than a year away from the World Cup. We do not have a legitimate striker that we can count on, where the other team actually has to game plan for him. And that's a problem right now, and Pochettino's going to have to figure that out. He gave him a run of games.
What'd you think of Downs?
I'm willing to continue on. It would have been interesting if the roles had been reversed and Downs had gotten the opportunity that Ajiman, would he have grown through the tournament? Because this group grew through the tournament.
Yeah. I was a little bummed he picked up the leg contusion because I liked in flashes what I saw of
I did want to see more of
Downs.
him. Yeah, I agree. I did want to see more of him, and maybe September is a chance for us to see more of him. Who knows how that's going to shape out? But I'm curious. Do you feel like that's the biggest area of concern is the number 9 position?
Well, I don't think that we got any more clarity or depth when it comes to the outside back positions. I don't think anybody showed well from an outside back perspective.
But is Freeman done enough to be in the mix? I mean, when we think about right backs,
No.
Serginho Dest is probably the starter, right? And then
He is.
you've got Joe Scally, although he left Scally off the roster completely. It depends on the profile to me that he wants. I think Freeman has shown to me he can be he's interesting. He's not the finished product. And you consider this is really only his first season he's blown on the scenes with Orlando.
And when you integrate players back in with the players that are not here right now, it's gonna look a little different. And maybe there's more possession. Well, there better be more possession going forward. Maybe there is more of that ruthlessness, not necessarily in terms of personality, but ruthlessness to capitalize on the space that someone like Mexico gives you here. So I'm intrigued. Mauricio Pochettino made it very, very clear that this is the last competitive game, which was interesting to hear him say. He's right, but it also means that it would have been nice to have everybody here to get a better assessment. Ultimately, this is the A-ish team from a Mexico perspective, so it's no surprise necessarily that they get to the final or that they win. And this is, it's a little derogatory to call it B or C or anything like that. It's still a national team. It's still representing the U.S. And ultimately, they still got to the final. And so they should get their flowers. I think at times they made us excited. At times they. There was some pride relative to this team, which has been missing going forward. And times there's some, I did the whole thing where I came on air when we started this tournament saying that a lot of people with their arms crossed. And there are, and there were, less now. Maybe they put them in their pockets as the tournament progressed. And then you hoped at the end of tonight, they took them out and maybe there was a slow clap. I don't think that happened given the final result, but certainly their arms are not folded anymore. And there is value to that, and they should be commended for that.
I think there's perspective, though, amongst the fan base as well. I do agree with how you have shown their progress throughout the course of the tournament, the fans I'm talking about. But I also feel like coming into the tournament, the fans would have had perspective and had their own objectives, right? And part of that would have been, is a player going to take their opportunity? Will we learn? Kind of similar to things that we were looking for, right? Like what players would emerge and take their moments? What would we learn about Pochettino? What would we learn about the culture, the feeling, how we relate to this group? And there were definitely different things, whether it was actually on-field stuff, whether it was the brotherhood that they talked about, and the growth that they made throughout the course of this tournament that gave you reasons to still have some semblance to take away, although they lose in the final, to take away from this group heading forward.
Go
ahead.
So much of this tournament has reminded me of my experience in 2009. My first ever cap for the national team came in the Gold Cup. First match at the Gold Cup. It was a B. B's probably putting it lightly. It was a C team. And a lot of us were given our opportunities with the national team because they had just been at the Confederations Cup, beat Spain, got to the final against Brazil. So this was seen as the tournament for guys who could emerge and who could be a part of the group. I was one of those players that had a very good Gold Cup. We get to the final against Mexico. First half is 0-0. Second half, we lose 5-0 and got absolutely destroyed. One of the worst games, in fact, the worst game I've ever been a part of in my career.
Oh, I
Something
saw it.
I remembered
Oh, yeah.
for the rest of my life. It was terrible. But I was one of those players that came out of that. I was in with the group in September, and I made my first World Cup roster in 2010.
So there's hope.
So there's hope. There's hope for these players. And that could be Berhalter, that could be Luna, that could be a number of these guys. And if that's your takeaway, and then you end up being part of the A team, you go to the 2010 World Cup, you have one of the best experiences of your life, then it becomes worth it. Right now, it sucks.
Yeah.
That feeling is terrible right now to be in that locker room.
The only thing that I would add to what you said there, or change from what you said, is you said you were given an opportunity. No, you earned it.
You earned it, yeah.
You earned
that's
it.
Fair.
And same thing with this group of players here. You're in camp regardless of if someone else had to pull out or whatever. Your name is in the mix because you earned the right to wear the national team jersey. And so now it's about how do you parlay that into more opportunities with the eye towards the World Cup. Of course, that's the ultimate goal, the ultimate challenge for all these players. But yeah, if you're wearing the U.S. kit, it's because you earned it. You weren't given it.
All right,
Absolutely, yeah.
We've come to the end of yet another tournament, gentlemen. Button it up. Final thoughts on this tournament as we look forward.
All right, my final thoughts on this tournament are I'm excited for the World Cup because it is a year away. We've talked about this moment for so long here in North America. I'm a little bit more energized by this team and what my hopes and expectations are for the foundation that has been laid over the course of the month. I'm disappointed that not more players didn't get to experience that I think will be a part of next summer because as we all said, when people are out there saying, no, these guys need rest and they need this, we all knew how valuable this month would be, not just for Pochettino, but for these players, for the pool, for the fan base, for everybody, for us here at Fox Sports. But it's a reminder of the energy that can exist around this national team. I think we're going to put up a massive number on TV today because people were catching wind that this team was starting to do something special. Ultimately, they fell short against a good Mexican team that is in a good moment. But all that really matters, guys, is what happens next summer. So this next 12 months, incredibly important to keep building off the momentum you've got here. Otherwise, it's not worth it. So September, big. But, let's see this team do something special. I think realistic expectation next year, I'm hoping quarterfinals at least.
Ooh, you threw that in at the end, huh? I don't know if I'm gonna add that part as well. But I would say biggest takeaway is I'm excited for the pressure of what next summer is, right? Because this tournament for some of these players was pressure as well. The pressure to perform, the pressure to win back a fan base, the pressure to recognize how quickly the World Cup is approaching and the momentum that we need to build internally as a team, the U.S. team, build amongst the fan base, build amongst us. And I feel like we're in a moment now where these players understand the pressure, whether it's from us or fans or internally as well. And I want to see how that propels them. They know what's at stake now. They know a home World Cup, this is a blessing. You're not going to live to see another one, to play in another one, that's for sure. And so I hope that they recognize the moment. I don't want to be sitting here 2 years from, not even 2 years from now, a year and some change from now after the World Cup's done and finished and have any regret. Have any regret that this team wasn't put in the best position possible to go and succeed, that these players didn't take advantage of every opportunity in front of them to succeed, and that we have a manager that's going to he's going to bleed for this team as well to make sure that they're all positioned for us to be cheering them on and celebrating something special when that World Cup is finished.
All right, let's finish it up here. A couple things from me. First off, this never gets old. I pinch myself every time I'm allowed to do this because we have incredible men and women in front of the camera, behind the camera that make yours truly look good, and believe me, it takes a village to do that. But the way in which we present it, I'm incredibly proud of, and this was just another example when it comes to the Gold Cup. And to your point, Stu, it makes me look so forward to what is going to happen next summer in places like this. And speaking of like this, indoor venue here. And for those that watched the pregame show, you will know that yours truly was sweating his ass off. And lots of sweat was dripping everywhere, including my ass, all over the place. But my point is that when this World Cup comes next summer, there are 4 indoor venues. When we're talking about Dallas, Atlanta, Houston, and Vancouver. There is a competitive advantage because it was a completely different planet when we came in here relative to being outside. And it's going to be a talking point. Look, we already have seen it this summer where it's a talking point when it comes to the weather, relative to the playing, relative to the players, relative to the safety. So there are going to be some really, really interesting conversations going on when teams are playing or aren't playing indoors going forward. So that's going to be fun. The second thing is it's fun to enjoy this team again. And I've said time and time again that sports are not a place for perspective. They are a place to be crazy and full of emotion and out of control when it comes to the things you're doing. And it was wonderful to see this team, which we know is far from perfect. It was wonderful to see this team that was kind of thrown together, and I've called them misfits and a ragtag bunch, and they were, but it was fun to see them grow together, and in doing so, do what a lot of people have wanted, and that was to make us care. And when they care, we care. And even though they lost this game, I have no doubt that these players cared. They cared from the moment the whistle blew in the first game to the moment the whistle blew to end this tournament for them. And that's what people want. That's what the American soccer public wants. And unfortunately, there was questions going into this tournament about, do players even care? Well, I think that they answered those questions going forward. And like I said earlier, it's going to be really, really interesting to see if this is that new identity for this team going forward that you have to adapt to, that you have to be, regardless of what you did before, how much money you make, how famous you are, all of that kind of stuff. And I'm here for it. And this year is going to go like that. And the World Cup is going to be here. And that opportunity, once again, 100 times the opportunity that we're talking about when it comes to the Gold Cup is going to be there for the players that get the incredible, not just opportunity, but the privilege to represent their country and to represent their country in a home World Cup. That is special. That is something that you will never forget. But there is a responsibility. And at least this summer, it was fun to see these players live up to that responsibility and, like I said, make people believe in this team again, make people care because they cared. You will see that I'm wearing this hat here. For those that did watch the pregame, you will know that I came in on a horse. I almost dropped the mic and said that.
Spectacular, by the way.
I tried, man. I tried. Again, I was sweating this poor horse, sweating all over this horse.
Let alone the weight.
It was fun. Yeah, let alone the weight. I will give you a peek behind the curtain. They came to me a couple days ago, and they said, hey, you ever ridden a horse? It's kind of like when people ask me if I've golfed. I have golfed. I do not golf. I have been on a horse.
I saw it.
Once in Qatar with my friend Stu Holden. I kid you not, this morning in my hotel room, I was on YouTube looking up how to ride a horse.
The do's and the don'ts.
Fake it till you make it, my friends. Fake it till you make it, my friends. It was wonderful. I'm going to keep this hat on for as long as I possibly can. Our good friend David Mossy obviously is not here today, but he watched the game. You know, he gets pulled in a bunch of different directions. He's been working Women's Euros and Gold Cup, so we will hear all of his thoughts on the game on our midweek show coming up. So we look forward to that. We thank him for all of the work that he does. Thank you guys for everything that you do.
Man.
Yes, it's going to be good. All right, onward and upward, ladies and gentlemen. I am Alexi Lalas. This has been the State of the Union. Thank you to Yerba Madre for everything that you've done through this Gold Cup when it comes to the State of the Union. We'll talk to you again next week. Like I said, keep downloading and reviewing and rating and subscribing and doing all the different things that you do. Left, right, up, and down. There we go. Punch it, smash it over there on the old subscribe button, all that kind of stuff on all the different platforms. We will talk to you again next week. And until then, and as always, my friends, size the day. Yeehaw!